Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being with us. We're going to give you a briefing on the deputy-involved shooting we had last night, and the information we're going to give you is as complete as it can be until the investigation's over. We still have to talk to the deputies involved, which we anticipate doing that this morning. Here's Shannon Baxley. Let me tell you first a little bit about Shannon Baxley. He's been in trouble since 1995. When this event occurred, he was out on bond for other nefarious conduct. He's 40 years old, and he's old enough to know better. Here's what happened. It is about 7:47 last evening, and our traffic deputies are in the area of Daughtry Road and Pierce Road in North Lakeland. The reason they are there is to conduct seat belt enforcement. When a vehicle appears that has dark tinted windows and they can't see into the vehicle to see if, in fact, the occupant is wearing a seat belt. One of our deputies, Costello, approaches our, now we know, Shannon Baxley, and when he does, Shannon rolls the window down about this far, and he says, "I need to see your driver's license." And he wants to argue with the deputy. The deputy tells him to pull over to the side. Apparently they're in the road area. We'll know exactly the details in a little while this morning. The guy continues to argue with him. The deputy can smell marijuana emanating from the vehicle, so he asks him over and over to exit the vehicle. He refuses to exit the vehicle, but he rolls the window down a little further, hands the deputy his license, rolls the window down a little further, and apparently is trying to see who the deputy is, and the deputy's continuing to ask him, "Step out of the vehicle, step out of the vehicle," and he says, "My lawyer says I don't have to get out of the vehicle." Well, during this time, as it's obviously escalating, the guy's refusing to come out of the vehicle, he won't roll his windows down, he won't comply with the lawful commands of the deputy. Another deputy pulls his car in front. The deputy pulls his car in front, and when he does, then the deputy, Costello, reaches in an effort to unlock the door. The guy backs up and takes off. And there's some kind of strike against the deputy with a suspect vehicle at that time. And that's when the pursuit begins. The pursuit will last a few more minutes. When he leaves the area of Pierce and Daughtry Road on 98 North, it goes south to the interstate, where they enter the interstate eastbound. They go from the eastbound interstate to the Parkway 570 and start south on the Parkway. When they start south on the Parkway, someplace in the area I-4 and 570, the deputy attempts to do a pit maneuver. It's told to us, the preliminary information is that the guy spiked his brakes and drove into the deputy. The pursuit continued on. Obviously, our suspect, Baxley, has assaulted now both of our deputies. He's driving in a violent and uncontrolled method. And in fact, the deputies' vehicles have been struck by this suspect vehicle. So they get to the area of Pace Road and 570. Our suspect then turns onto Pace Road and heads toward Berkeley Road. At this time of the evening, Pace Road does not have much traffic, and really it's a good place to try to stop this person whose vehicle is totally out of control. He is driving like an absolute madman. When they get to Berkeley Road, that's when the second pit maneuver is completed by Deputy Sheriff Wolford. Deputy Sheriff Wolford pits the vehicle. They both slide off of the road and into the ditch, which has water in it. The suspect jumps out of the vehicle. The Deputy Wolford jumps out of his vehicle because their vehicles are literally, they're face to face, because when they went off the road, Deputy Wolford's vehicle and the suspect's vehicle. He immediately sees the guy going for his waist and tells him, show me your hands, or words to that effect. And he fails to do that, and he's turning toward Christofello, who is now has pulled up and has blocked the vehicle from getting away. And that's when he is shot. We shot 4 times. We struck him 3 times. It appears once in the arm, twice in the abdomen, and one shot hit the vehicle. We immediately provided first aid until Shannon Baxley was taken to a local hospital where he underwent emergency surgery, and that's where he is now. He's expected to recover, the last I heard. But here's the history of Shannon in just the last year. Now, you understand it, you really have to go out of your way to have an interaction with law enforcement. On June the 19th of 2018, we Baker acted him. He was yelling and screaming and driving, racing up and down the road in front of his ex-girlfriend's house, threatening to kill himself. May, before that June event of this year, we were serving a warrant on Markham Road for a fellow who had an outstanding warrant. The guy was resisting us and hiding underneath a bed and wouldn't come out, and ultimately we sent the dog in, where the dog bit the suspect, but it was kind of a twofer for us. The dog took the one suspect in custody, and we found another suspect there as well that had outstanding warrants, and that was Shannon Baxley. He was charged on that particular occasion with some more felonies: possession of meth, possession of marijuana, and possession of heroin. And then if you back up to August 2017, and this might have been what Shannon Baxley was worried about last night, on a traffic stop by the sheriff's office, he was arrested for possession of meth and possession of marijuana, and I understand he did not resist that arrest, unlike last night resisting this arrest. He was out on bond from this May 2018 event when this event occurred last night. So obviously what he knew that the deputies didn't know was, hey, this guy's asking me to step out of the car like they did the last time. I've got drugs on me again. I'm out on bond. I'm going to be arrested, and I'm thinking that he's thinking I'm not going back to jail, so I'll just resist. When you drive a Ford Fusion down the highway and ram deputies' cars, that's a violent felony. When you put the public, the motoring public, in harm's way intentionally, that is a violent act. And this guy was out of control. And if you follow him back to November 2016, he was arrested then for carrying a taser by a convicted felon. So the investigation has a lot of work in order to complete it, but that's the details that we know at this point in the investigation. Certainly our goal with our deputies is for them to go home alive and well at the end of shift, and Shannon Baxley threatened their lives last night with his motor vehicle, and he was ultimately shot when he made furtive motions and failed to comply with the deputies after committing forcible felonies. So, As the investigation goes forward, you will receive more information, and that's the information we know at this time. And as we say, when we're early on into an investigation, quite frankly, any of this is subject to modification, but we're comfortable with knowing that Shannon did not significantly injure. Our deputies, they're alive, they're well, and Shannon's recovering from his wounds at the hospital. Any questions?
So it just seems like he was pretty well out of control.
I mean, he's totally out of control, and it has been for a period of time. And it's all related to drugs, meth, marijuana, heroin, out on bond. You know, you can ask, why is he even out to be driving like this when you look at these charges? But of course, he's not. He's out bonded out, waiting on the disposition on some of his conduct from May. But this is a guy who, back to 1995, what's that? 23 years worth of criminal history. Most of it centers around drugs, battery. He uses drugs and hits people or does whatever he wants to. Last night, he knew what the deputies didn't know, that this was going to send him probably to prison. And he wasn't going to go to prison. And he was going to do his best to get away. Now, we don't know. We certainly have pulled his blood to see what his intoxication level from what drugs / marijuana, meth, heroin, we don't know what he had in his system, but certainly we suspect that he had something in his system because normal people don't act like this. I mean, we at that point had his driver's license. And quite frankly, had he sped off without assaulting us, we'd have just gone and found him later. But when he sped off assaulting us, who else is he going to run over? The roads are wet, it's raining, and fortunately, no one was injured other than the suspect.
Sheriff, did you find any evidence of him having a weapon? I understand he went for his waistband. But
Yes.
Was any weapon recovered at the scene or on the ground?
We found 2 knives in his car, one in the driver's seat and one on the passenger floorboard. We also found where, and we are suspecting, when he was going for his waist and we were telling him, show us your hands, and this happened like that, he threw a baggie of marijuana. So the reality of it is, instead of going for a gun, this goofball might have been trying to get rid of his marijuana. But when you're involved in a violent felony encounter with law enforcement, and you just tried to run over them, run them off the road, and you go for your waist, it's game on.
Sheriff, you said he was Baker acted last month. How difficult is it dealing with someone with mental health issues like that as well?
Do you know, the reality, he was Baker acted because of his conduct, saying he wanted to kill himself, and it was an ex-girlfriend, and he was on drugs. But the question was he mentally ill? Or was he using drugs and was angry that his girlfriend broke up with him? That's all questions that we can't answer this early on in the investigation. But it's one more indicator that Shannon Baxley was out of control. I mean, this is not some 16-year-old kid. This is a 40-year-old man with an illustrious criminal history. And he knows what's expected of him. He knows what he's supposed to do. But instead, he chooses to be wild and out of control.
What were the injuries to deputies?
The deputies were not significantly injured, make no mistake about that. And I can't tell you exactly what occurred other than when, at some point in time when the deputy was in the car, that's when the car took off, striking the deputy. I don't know if it struck his whole body, struck his hands, rolled him up over the hood. I don't know what happened yet until we talk to them, and that will be this morning. But it's an assault, and it's an assault with a weapon, and a car is a weapon. Make no mistake about that. It would have been a lot easier. Keep in mind that a non-moving infraction is $114, a civil citation. Oh yeah, he would have been charged with the marijuana in his car. But when I look at it academically, yes, would that have probably Parker v. stated him, a new crime, he'd have had to stay in jail? Yes. But we're talking about, and the investigation's not over, we haven't searched the car, there may be other stuff in there that we haven't found, but he chose to make a serious felonious event out of what started out with just a couple of minor charges. But when you stack those minor charges on top of what he already had, he thought it best to fight with the cops. And he lost.
Well, I understand that he was driving erratically and driving down the road. Do you know how fast he may have been going?
Not yet. We will after we talk to the deputies. Okay. Thank you all very much. We'll update you as this unfolds. Have a great day.